Have you ever found yourself strangely annoyed by the very person you've built your life with? It might feel unsettling, but many people over 70 begin to sense a subtle change in how they relate to their spouse, not because love disappears, but because aging, daily routines, and long, unspoken tensions slowly rise to the surface. In this video, we'll explore 8 quiet yet meaningful reasons why older adults start to feel resentful toward their partners after 70, and what those feelings might really be pointing to. These aren't explosive issues or dramatic betrayals. They're often quiet, emotional disconnects that build silently over time. Why does this matter? Because recognizing these subtle signs can help you understand your own emotions, rebuild understanding, and find calm within the long-term relationship you've nurtured. So stay with me until the end. You might just find clarity that changes the way you see your partnership. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. This is a space for honest, kind, and meaningful conversations about growing older, and you're always welcome here. Reason 1. Unmet expectations about retirement. One of the most overlooked causes of quiet resentment after 70 is when retirement turns out differently than either partner imagined. Many couples spend decades dreaming of retirement as a time of rest, travel, and freedom. But what happens when one partner wants peaceful mornings in the garden, while the other dreams of road trips in an RV? Each of us holds an internal vision of what retirement should be, and when your spouse doesn't share that vision, unspoken frustration can creep in. Often, this doesn't erupt into arguments, but it leads to small emotional gaps, one person pulling back, the other wondering what changed. Psychologists call this clash of internal stories narrative identity. We all carry a script for the future, and when your partner's version conflicts with yours, it can feel like they're rewriting your life without telling you. Take Robert and Linda, both in their 70s. Linda dove into volunteer work after retiring, while Robert hoped for slow days together at home. He never said anything, but felt stung each time she rushed out with her schedule full. This slow drift doesn't mean your relationship is broken. It means it's time to rewrite the agreement for this new chapter. After 70, resentment doesn't often come from big conflicts. It grows quietly from the gap between two people dreaming different dreams. Reason 2. Emotional connection isn't being refreshed. As we move into our later decades, something subtle often happens in long-term marriages. The emotional connection begins to fade without us even noticing. In earlier years, there were constant reasons to talk: raising kids, building careers, managing daily life. But once things calm down after 70, you might suddenly realize you haven't had a real heart-to-heart in a long time. Not about errands or schedules, but about your inner world, your hopes, your regrets, what still excites you. When that level of connection fades, the relationship can begin to feel like a routine instead of a bond. This isn't due to lack of love, it's what experts call emotional drift, where people stop sharing deeper feelings simply because they assume their partner already knows them. But emotional closeness doesn't maintain itself on autopilot. Consider Susan and Gerald, both 76. One evening after dinner, she asked, "What's something you're still curious about?" He paused, then smiled, like someone who hadn't been asked something meaningful in years. That one question reawakened something between them. Resentment doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it settles in the silence between two people who stopped exploring each other's hearts. After 70, emotional closeness must be refreshed, or it quietly fades away. To find yourself feeling isolated while sitting next to the very person who once felt like home, that's a pain few talk about. But if you're still watching this video and these reflections are resonating with you, drop a number 2 in the comments below to let me know you're still here. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you won't miss future videos. Your support allows us to keep sharing thoughtful, heartfelt content that informs and uplifts. Now let's keep going. Reason 3, carrying the weight of unresolved disappointments. By the time you reach your 70s, the past isn't just behind you, It lives beside you, coloring every conversation, every pause, every flash of memory that catches you off guard. In long-standing relationships, one of the most overlooked sources of resentment is the emotional baggage from old hurts that never truly healed. Maybe it was a promise that was broken, a personal dream quietly sacrificed, or a chapter when one partner carried more of the load and swallowed the resentment. Psychologists call this accumulated grievance. It's the idea that small, unresolved emotional wounds harden over time. And with fewer distractions in later life, those buried feelings often rise again. The resentment you feel might not come from today, but from something that happened years ago and never really faded. Consider Robert, now 81, who said, "I'm not angry about what happened. I'm hurt she never acknowledged it, and I never told her I needed her to." That's the kind of emotional scar that quietly grows into distance. The danger here is subtle. Instead of healing the past, we learn to tiptoe around it, but unspoken pain seeps into the present. It shows up in tension, sarcasm, or silence, and unless it's named, it lingers as a ghost in the relationship, quietly separating two people who once vowed to grow old side by side. So if you feel a heaviness that doesn't match your current life, ask yourself, what unfinished emotion might still be waiting to be heard? Because if we don't face it, the past doesn't stay buried. It shadows the love that remains. Reason 4, shifting emotional needs. Many people don't realize this, but emotional needs change with age, and often not at the same pace for both partners. After 70, there's often a stronger longing for closeness, warmth, and simply being present with one another. But if one spouse is still wired to solve problems or stay busy like they did in their 40s or 50s, while the other just wants to be seen and heard, it can leave one partner emotionally starving. It's no longer about big romantic gestures. It's about the small, quiet things, listening without interrupting, being curious about each other's thoughts, and showing you still care about who your partner is deep inside. When those little acts of connection disappear, one person can begin to feel invisible, worse, emotionally unimportant. Mary, now 77, once said, "He still repairs anything that breaks, but he hasn't asked how I'm really doing in years." That gap didn't grow from neglect. It came from not realizing that what once felt like love, fixing, providing, staying occupied, now feels more like distance or even avoidance. As emotional needs become more subtle and internal, failing to notice them starts to feel personal. And that's where resentment grows, not just from unmet needs, but from the feeling that those needs aren't even recognized. This is one of the most fixable kinds of disconnection, but only if someone is willing to ask a simple question with sincerity. How are you really doing lately? That one question can begin to rebuild emotional closeness. But when it's never asked, the emotional gap only widens. If you're still with us and connecting with these insights, comment number 4 below to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Your support helps us keep creating the content that matters most. Reason 5. Different ways of coping with aging. Aging doesn't affect everyone the same way, and those differences can quietly drive a wedge between even the closest couples. Some people become cautious, wanting to slow down, avoid stress, and protect their comfort. Others feel a growing urgency, eager to experience as much as possible while they still can. When one partner wants to rest and the other wants to chase new adventures, what starts as a personal preference can turn into a source of tension. It's not really about what each one wants to do, it's about what they're each trying to cope with inside. One may be trying to feel safe in a world of uncertainty, while the other is fighting to keep life meaningful before it slips away. Without open dialogue, each partner starts seeing the other through a lens of misunderstanding, one as demanding, the other as stubborn. But at the root of it all, both are just trying to find peace. Frank, 82, spent years asking his wife to join him on road trips. She always declined, saying she didn't have the energy. He felt hurt. She felt overwhelmed, but neither ever voiced what was really going on. Fear. These different coping instincts, rest versus action, comfort versus purpose, aren't wrong. But when we don't talk about them, they breed resentment. One person starts to seem lifeless, the other impulsive. In that gap, love can quietly cool. The couples who get through this don't force agreement. They honor each other's feelings even when they don't match. And that small act of respect can turn conflict into connection. Reason 6. Tension around money and spending. After 70, money isn't just about paying bills. It becomes wrapped up in how we view freedom, security, and even dignity. And for many couples, this is where unspoken conflicts begin. One spouse may want to enjoy the fruits of decades of hard works, splurging a little, traveling, giving to family. The other might feel anxious, watching savings shrink and worrying about the future. What one sees as generosity, the other sees as recklessness. What feels like financial wisdom to one, feels like control to the other, and slowly, these differences begin to feel personal. Carl, 78, described how his wife often bought gifts for their grown kids without discussing it first. He felt dismissed, she felt controlled. Neither was trying to hurt the other, but the silence around money created hurt anyway. Over time, these small frustrations build up. A single credit card charge or disagreement over a gift can explode into something far deeper. And when this issue isn't addressed, couples often slip into damaging habits, secret purchases, financial guilt, tripping, or keeping money separate out of mistrust. But the issue usually isn't the spending itself. It's the lack of shared understanding. Couples who work through this talk openly, not just about budgets, but about what money means to them now. Is it about safety, joy, independence? These conversations can prevent resentment from taking root. If you're still watching and this resonates, comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that button. Your support makes it possible for us to keep bringing you thoughtful, meaningful content. Now let's continue. Reason 7, emotional disconnection and fading intimacy. In the early years, relationships are full of warmth, shared stories, laughter, soft touches, knowing glances. But after 70, those habits can quietly disappear, not because love is gone, but because routine slowly replaces emotional closeness. Emotional withdrawal often doesn't announce itself. One partner stops sharing daily details. The other stops asking. Evenings once spent together drift into separate activities in different rooms. There's no argument, no big rift. Just a growing quiet between two people who once couldn't get enough of each other. And with emotional distance, physical intimacy tends to follow. Not just sex. Reason 7, emotional withdrawal and reduced intimacy. Over time, even small acts of affection, like holding hands, gentle teasing, or making eye contact, can quietly disappear. Some partners withdraw out of fear of rejection. Others are slowed by health issues, body image concerns, or the quiet belief that intimacy no longer matters. But it does. When emotional or physical closeness fades, it sends a silent message: you're not worth the effort anymore. And when that message is repeated in daily moments, it builds like sediment in a pipe, eventually making connection feel unreachable. Marjorie, 74, said her husband was around all the time after retirement, but emotionally it felt like he'd vanished. "He's like a ghost of the man who used to know me," she said. Many couples assume this is just part of growing old, but it doesn't have to be. Intimacy may look different after 70, but it can still be alive, gentler, quieter, but deeply meaningful. The strongest couples keep exploring each other. They stay curious. They reach out, not because they have to, but because warmth matters. Maybe now more than ever, in a world that often feels colder with age. Reason 8, the burden of unspoken grievances. By your 70s, you've likely walked through decades of shared life, filled with memories, milestones, and moments that shaped you both. But not everything was said along the way. The disappointments, the compromises, the dreams quietly given up, these don't disappear. They settle deep inside like dust in the corners of your heart. It wasn't worth the fight, or I'll let it go, becomes years of quiet erosion. Resentment often grows not from one big betrayal, but from 1,000 small moments, times when your voice wasn't heard, your needs weren't met, or your sacrifices were unnoticed. At this stage of life, you may find yourself revisiting old turning points, moments that didn't seem huge then, but now feel unresolved. William, now 81, shared he had never told his wife how deeply it hurt when she dismissed his dream to move to the mountains after retirement. She didn't even ask why. It was like I didn't matter, he said. What he buried as being practical in his 60s turned into quiet bitterness in his 70s. That's the danger. Unspoken feelings don't go away, they ferment. And when they resurface later in life, they carry the weight of all the years they were ignored. But healing is still possible. It begins with courage, a single honest conversation, a moment of patience, or a willingness to listen without defensiveness. Many couples begin again, not by forgetting the past, but by finally speaking it out loud, with care and with the hope of reconnecting where it matters most. Final thoughts from Sir Monson. Relationships that last through the decades are rich, layered, and far more complex than we ever imagined in our younger years. And if you're in your 70s or beyond, you already know, love isn't just about romance. It's about endurance, understanding, forgiveness. Over time, resentment rarely shouts. It often shows up quietly. A slight distance, a feeling of being misunderstood, a growing silence. But noticing it is the first step toward healing. So ask yourself, which of these 8 reasons spoke to you? Which one stirred something inside you? Maybe it's time for a conversation you've been postponing. Or maybe you've just realized that change is still possible, and that love, even now, can grow deeper. True connection in later life doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, a willingness to keep showing up and learning about the person you've known for years, and maybe discovering them all over again. If this video gave you something to reflect on, we're honored. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What's one insight you're taking with you, and how will you use it? Your voice matters. And every comment we read inspires us to keep doing this work. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating honest, heartfelt content to guide and uplift. Thanks for being here with us today. We'll see you in the next video.